Hey guys, my name is Mavi and I've spent the last 14 years in the plastic surgery and beauty industry, working alongside some of the best plastic surgeons in the country. Now I don't work for anybody, so I have unbiased opinions about hundreds of surgeons from across the world, and I can help you achieve the body of your dreams. Hey guys, do I have the show for you today? You're not going to believe who I have on the show. I have Dr. Chidester. He goes by Dr.Chiddy. You guys probably have seen him all over the internet, dancing and educating and just doing the best that he can do. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Chiddy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a long time coming.
It really has. You know, you really caught my attention on TikTok, and it was mainly because of your mommy takeovers. I would love for you to tell us about how you came up even with calling it a mommy takeover, and what do you see in your patients?
Yeah, so, the mommy takeover goes back. So I practice in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm a board certified plastic surgeon. And a lot of the population here in Salt Lake City and the surrounding area are women who have either recently had kids or in the middle of having kids or done having kids. And they're in their 20s to mid 40s typically. So a lot of my patients are in that kind of mommy age range where they're raising their kids still, or the kids are a little bit older. So because I do so many like mommy makeovers, I all my patients are female pretty much. I do have some male patients, but mostly female. And one thing I've really noticed with these surgeries is just how empowering it is for women to really get their bodies back, to kind of take back control of their body. So I said, I feel like the word makeover, although it's fine, and we hear that all over the internet and social media, I feel like it's not as empowering as a woman who's taking control of their life back, taking back their body. So that's why I started calling the mommy takeover, and it's just kind of stuck. And so my patients call it that. And I just love that because, this is something we're able to help women with. They just can't do on their own when you have that loose, stubborn skin, that scarred fat, wide muscle separation. And those are things, no matter what they do in terms of exercise, diet, it's never going to repair itself. And I think one thing I try to do on social media is really help people understand that, and kind of break those stigmas down. Hey, you're not copping out if you decide you want to do this mommy takeover. We're just doing something to help you out. And to see the confidence that women have after the mommy takeover, it's just so gratifying and rewarding for me as a surgeon, our team, and our patients.
Dr. Chiddy, that boost of confidence is what led me to launch this show and led me to believe, hey, I have something important to say. I have information I can share. And I shared it with my audience how it was not that before I had my surgery, I was already working in plastic surgery and I had all the knowledge, but I didn't really have the confidence in myself to believe, hey, I can do it. And it was after my surgery and going through the whole process and seeing how much information there was lack of online, it led me to what, I can do it. And I'm so thankful because and I'm sure you have seen the amazing transformations in women's and just how their lives just take off after surgery.
Yeah, no, for real. And it's cool that you have that personal experience that you can relate to your audience and to other plastic surgery patients. And I agree with you. There's a lack of information out there. The problem is there's a lot of information that's either incomplete or misleading. That's a lot of times not generated by even plastic surgeons, people who, just aren't a part of the field. But so it's really important for us, I think, as educators to, share those experiences and help people better understand. Again, like I said, break down the stigmas of plastic surgery. We hear that and we just think, oh, it's vanity. Well, for one, if you're doing it for a vain purpose, so what? That's up to you. It's no one's place to judge you. But two, there's so much more than that. It's the functional aspects that you talk about, the confidence that you have after the surgery, and what it's able to do for people's self-esteem. And so it's just really cool to see those changes. And people that don't know about it, they don't know the benefits you can get. If there's a really good restaurant down the street and you've never heard of it, you'll never be able to experience that, But people go there, they love it, and they start sharing about it, and you hear word of mouth, and then you experience it, and you want to share it, And so I think that's where the mommy takeover and plastic surgery is headed, in my opinion. I've seen that change over the last 5 years of being in practice, just social media being a good tool for surgeons and other people to help educate the public.
I did see that you had some presentations where you were talking about social media and plastic surgery. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I get asked pretty frequently to speak on this topic. Like at the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, I speak every year at the Hot Topics about kind of what's going on in social media as it relates to plastic surgeons, because we get shadow banned, new guidelines are coming in all the time. And so I kind of update and talk on those things. But I do also speak to, other professionals and then, even the general public about social media in terms of utilizing it for a business, because I'm a plastic surgeon, but I also am a business owner, private practice business owner. We have our own team and staff. And so there's a lot of things that relate to even people outside of plastic surgery. I did receive, ASPS is the Society of Plastic Surgeons. They had their first year, they called it the inaugural year for social media awards. And they've never done this before. But this is the first year they wanted to recognize plastic surgeons in our field that were utilizing social media in ways to help the public and to help surgeons. And so I received the overall, I don't know what it's called, overall social media award for best representation of the specialty. So I felt very honored. I didn't know that was happening, but so I had to show up in Austin last second to be there.
How cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started doing this. So I finished my practice or training in California in 2018. And so then I joined a practice here in Salt Lake City in 2018. And that's when I started using social media. And I'd used it in the past, but not for, this, for education. And, in doing that early on, and then when TikTok came around in 2019, when I started using it early on, I got a lot of flack for that. Like people why are you so unprofessional? Why are you dancing? Or why are you, making TikToks? And I got a lot of heat. And, I never did anything that was unethical or just over the top. I was trying to educate, but also be myself and dance. And so it's kind of nice to see this now coming full circle, people acknowledging hey, actually, we realize we need to use this to educate our patients. And it's a really important tool. And, for them to say that. So I feel very humbled.
That's amazing. I had Dr. Miami on the show and we talked about how when he started using Snapchat, that same year he got a letter from the society saying stop, you're in trouble. And he said I kept going, and the next year they were like, hey, why don't you come talk to the surgeons about using social media? So I think it's interesting how they at first they're like, hey, don't do that, and then they come back around.
He is amazing, by the way. What he does is just phenomenal. And I definitely admire his work. And, I don't do Snapchat personally, but I think what he's done has really, I think he's been one of the main pioneers. He came before me, and it's just cool to see how successful he's been, but also help building up other surgeons. But yeah, no, I see that. I think, plastic surgeons, especially maybe the older surgeons, are much more conservative, right? And even if you look back at when the Yellow Pages, when the Yellow Pages came out, surgeons were getting on each other for using an ad in the Yellow Pages, and just a simple ad. And then when billboards became a thing, surgeons would get on each other for doing a billboard, and then websites. So it's just anything new that comes out, surgeons are just so hesitant and feel threatened. In my mind, I have a different mentality than some people. Some people think, look, there's one pie. And if I have a piece of pie and you take a piece of pie, we're going to run out of pie. And so I think that's where people get so territorial. And, I'm kind of the opposite. It's you know what, in my mind, there's a lot of pie, first off. There's more pie than you can ever eat. And two, some people don't like pie, I like pie, but some people like cake. I love chocolate cake, right? Or some people love cheesecake, or some people love, eclairs. And so in my mind, different surgeons are different types of desserts, and not every person out there wants to come and have my pie. They may want Dr. Miami's cake, right? Or, so-and-so's eclair. But so I think if we have that mentality, we're not going to look at each other like competition. We should be building each other up. And so that's kind of where I've tried to go with social media and push that kind of more positive narrative.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? Let me tell you another thing that caught my eye. Your belly buttons are chef's kiss. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how do you decide what the belly button is going to look like, to educate our audience on how the belly button looks, how you decide, I guess, how you decide how it's going to look, how they can look at belly buttons and make some conclusions.
Yeah. So, thinking about abdominoplasties is something, we obviously all learn in training, and there's so many different techniques of how to create a belly button. And a lot of people think, one, we just cut off your belly button you were born with and then make a new one. And we do that sometimes. Like I did that yesterday, actually. But for the most part, we're actually saving your belly button stock. We cut around it, we pull the skin down, and then reshape the belly button. And so for me, when I first started doing it, I was doing what I learned in training, but I realized pretty quickly, like we're trying to take like someone's belly button, like how they had it their whole lives, and then change it to make it look like everybody else's belly button that you're doing, and it's like, I didn't feel like that was natural because I felt like we're trying to take a square and fit it in a circle, for everyone. It's like if you have a hammer, everyone's got a nail, but some people have different shaped belly buttons. And so when I look at a belly button, I've kind of evolved how I do it because I spend a lot of time. I spend about 30 minutes in each surgery of a tummy tuck. And tummy tuck takes about 75 minutes, and 30 of that I'm spending doing the belly button. Because in the end of the day, you can hide your tummy tuck scar under your swimsuit or your bikini, but you can't hide your belly button. I mean, you can just cover it, right? But really, like, I think the best types of tummy tucks that you can get that is when you're willing to show off a belly button. So for me, it really comes down to, one, what does your belly button look like before surgery? And some women's belly buttons, they're like, I don't like it, right? They're like, I don't like my belly button. It's stretched out from pregnancy. They might have a hernia, so there's a little, stuff poking through, or it's just stretched out, or it's really long because maybe they gained a lot of weight and lost it during pregnancy. So there's all these factors I look into. I'm actually in the middle of writing a paper on it to publish in a journal. So I'm going to kind of publish my actual, like how I do it step by step. But in the end, I look at their belly button. I ask them if it's one they like it, or if they want it different. Because some people say, well, I want more of a vertical, I want more round, so I ask the patients, and then we reshape it during surgery. So that takes, like I said, 30 minutes. There's a lot of steps for that. But I really think spending the time to do that, my patients will feel like, they've done something that really helps them look like they did before they had kids.
Absolutely. And those belly buttons, that's probably the number one thing I hear from women who are considering a tummy tuck. I'm scared of having an ugly belly button, or, I'm sure you've seen some pictures on the internet where they have a really big scar around their belly button and just unsightly. And it's something that, it scares them. So to know that you tailor your belly button design to the patient's, what she's looking for, what they have, what they desire, I think that's really amazing. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your build out. I think I heard you called it the plastic surgery church or something like that.
Yeah, maybe other people have called it that. I haven't. Yeah, so I started my own practice, in just a little background. Started my own practice. It was called Jerry Chidester, MD, just my name, basic, right? In 2020. So I started that 2 months before COVID hit. We didn't know at the time that was going to happen, obviously. So we had a very small practice, a few employees. Then COVID hit. But it was during COVID that I kind of really just did a lot of social media, did virtual consults. So we really didn't have downtime. We were still working. I paid all my employees, we did the PPP loan stuff. And so we kept our doors open. I kind of had to, because I had no revenue. Like, I just opened a practice, and I'm in a lot of debt as a med student.
As a new
doctor, med student. So I was like, we have to stay open. So luckily I got that federal loan and paid our staff and kept seeing consults. So then when we opened up again in May, we were really busy. And it just has never stopped since May of 2020. So early on, though, in my practice, after having been with a different practice for the first year and a half, one thing I told myself was, I want to own the space that I will retire in, meaning I wanted to invest in that building and that space early on. So we got really busy early on, and I just took every single thing that we made and I saved it. And then I was looking for a location, and one of my friends from high school works for a project management company. And I said, hey man, can we find like a plot of land that we could do a building? And he said, yeah, I have a couple for you. And so he took us up to this point of the mountain over here in South Salt Lake. It's called Draper. And he took us up to this land. He said, hey, we're thinking of doing a pretty big building here with a couple other guys. And I said, I looked at, the view and I said, I have to be here. Like, this is where I have to be. And so we, all that money we had saved, we put towards the building. Luckily we had that. And then, so it's been a 3-year process. I mean, going through commercial building and real estate is just a whole different beast. And, I would say plastic surgery for me is a lot easier than doing business stuff. But yeah, so we've been building this. It's a pretty big building, but again, we share it with a couple of partners. So we occupy about 40,000 square feet. So the lowest level is a 5 OR ASC, so ambulatory surgery center. We'll have overnight stay. So for a lot of our out-of-state patients out of town, we'll have them stay with a nurse overnight. It's not common in Utah to have recovery centers like that. So we'd be one of the first ones for plastics to do that. In Utah, at least. And then the main level, the second level, is our spa and our clinic. It's another 20,000 square feet. So we're doing that because I really have this kind of vision and dream. And, I have 2 partners now that work with me. So there's 3 plastic surgeons since we started. We really want to grow this and become just a center of excellence in Salt Lake City and in the West, in the U.S., where we're a place where people can come and say, hey, I want to come learn with you guys. We want to share ideas. We want to operate together. Do trainings, do injection trainings, aesthetics trainings, and do all these things to really just be like a center of learning.
Absolutely. I love that. That's wonderful. And I know you have a secret weapon. Her name's Mindy, right? Why don't you tell me a little bit about Mindy and how has this transformation with both of y'all going through this journey of moving, starting the business, starting another business, deciding to start a building. I'm sure it was amazing.
Yeah, so Mindy's my boss, first off, and she's my wife. And so we worked together. We've known each other since high school, since we were 17. We got married when we were 22, when I was in college. She went to hair school, and so she, pretty much supported our family all the way through residency because I just didn't have much of an income for, 8+ years, 8 years. And so we were just, she's always been by my side and always supportive. We have 3 kids together. And, as we were in our first practice, under another surgeon, she was still doing my bookkeeping because she did that with her parents when she was younger. So she knew how to do accounting and bookkeeping. So she did that for me. And then when we left that place, it was scary, for me to start a business. I had no idea what I was doing. She didn't either, but we figured it out, and the good thing is that she's just always been so supportive. She's always been my number 1 fan. And the coolest thing is watching her grow over the last 5 years, in her capacity. I mean, she is a boss. She runs that place. I mean, she has all the relationships with all these companies and they love her. All the staff, we have over 40 employees now. They respect her, look up to her, and she gets things done. And quite honestly, even though she's my wife, it's not always she's on my side. She's on the biz side of the business. When we come home, yeah, we're obviously on each other's side, but sometimes, I have an idea and she's like, that doesn't make sense, but I appreciate that because I need that honest feedback, and so I think she's helped us build a really good culture in our business and in our team, and patients see that and our staff appreciate that. And she's very protective of that culture and she gets it. So
that's beautiful. We know as somebody who worked in a plastic surgery office and hearing from the patients, we know how important it is to have really good staff, to have happy staff who's happy to be there, who's happy to be seeing patients, who's happy to answer the phone. We know how important all of that really is in the grand scheme of things when somebody's calling your office. We can tell. Usually I can call an office and I can tell how that experience is going to be just by that interaction with the front desk. If they're miserable and they don't really sound that happy, I wonder what's going on over there.
For sure. Yeah, one thing I learned about business, and I've talked about this a lot on different podcasts, with even non-plastic surgery podcasts like business and stuff, is that, business culture is so important, establishing, foundations for your business that people all understand and can work with, because it's, you bring someone in who has a totally different culture than you, or not personality, but culture, it's not going to mesh well. And it's hard to, again, fit a square peg into a round hole, and there's going to be tension there. It's not going to work, and that will come out eventually. And so we're very, who we hire, if we have to fire, all those decisions are made based off of our culture. And, our HR person, she just knows our culture. Obviously, Mindy knows it, and our staff knows it. But because of that culture, like I said, it's very reflective of us and our personalities, and our patients see that and they appreciate it.
They do. So I've actually had a few patients who have gone through who had surgery with you and gone through your care, and I've loved how you've taken care of them. Why don't you tell us about what can somebody expect when they come see you, as far as seeing you for consultation? How is the post-op care? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it depends, if you're in state or out of state, but essentially we treat you the same in terms of how many follow-ups you have and all that, whether you're in state or out of state. My whole goal from the beginning was, if we were going to start, because of social media and things, just, our reach is across the nation and the world. And so I really wanted to establish care where if someone were to come from New York or Australia or down the street, they're going to have the same level of care and feel like they're being attended to the same. So if you're from out of state, for example, a lot of times patients will actually fly in now for their consult to meet me in person and our team. But that's not required. But what I do require is, if you're coming from out of state, typically I do want to meet you before your surgery. I don't like to show up the day of surgery and say, hi, here we are, because I want to see you, examine you, get all your measurements, make sure everything is what we were planning, But usually we'll do a virtual consultation. I do that like this, face-to-face or in person. I always meet you at the consult. I don't have my PA or someone else see you for a consultation. I'm the one coming up with the plan with you as the patient, and we decide together what you want to do, what's best for you, what's safest. So we do that, and then patients typically have a pre-op appointment with my nurse, and that's where they go over a lot of the details, the nitty-gritty of all the consent forms and everything. And that can typically be a virtual consult if it's out of state, or again, if I didn't see you at the original consult, then we try to have we arrange it so your pre-op is in town, and then I meet you as well. So again, I always meet you before surgery. And then our nurses go through all the consent, we get the photos. If there's any questions that arise or you want to change your plan, then I'll meet you again. Then the nurse will say, hey, they have questions, and then I'll meet you again before surgery, because I want to make sure that your plan is clear to you and that what we're doing is what you want and that you're safe. So then the day of surgery, I meet you, obviously, we do all that, you have your surgery. And then we always do a 24-hour post-op appointment. I always do that. I know not every doctor does it. I mean, that's up to them. But I feel like if you're going to catch anything wrong within the first 24 hours, like that is the ideal time to do it, right? And so I always see it. But, because my schedule, I operate almost every day, so I'm not always in clinic. And the way that, because we don't have our new building yet, where everything's in one space, I operate sometimes in a different city than where my clinic is. So I can't be in two places at once. But we tell our patients ahead of time, we give them a schedule. We say, okay, these are the days you're going to see Dr. Chidester. These are when you see my nurse and our PA, and we cycle. So we see patients at 24 hours at 1 week. So if I didn't see you at your one day, I see you at the 1 week for sure. So I always see you within the first week post-op. And then we do like a 3 week, a 6 week, a 3 months, and then annually. And so pretty much I tell patients, if you're my patient for life. I want to take care of you. And so we're always available if you ever need us.
That's a really interesting thing that you said about the follow-ups. I want to ask you, and I always tell my listeners that we struggle to get post-op pictures. Mm-hmm. So I'm super curious to see if you have found a way of getting post-op pictures after 6 weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, we, from the beginning, like I said, we give them the schedule. We actually have a printout that goes in their
consent folder
consult packet. Yeah. And it says like, these are when we'll see you. And so we set the expectation in the beginning, like, we're going to follow up a lot until you get sick of us pretty much. Right. But, and then for the out of state, yeah, like if they're not in person, I always tell them, if you're from out of state, I'd love to see you at least in person one more time, after your surgery. So whether it's at 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, at least one time, try to come back for a trip. And that doesn't always happen, especially if they're from out of the country. But because of those expectations, yeah, I mean, we at 3 months, that's when I always see my patients again, and it's when the swelling is mostly gone and all that, and scars look fine. So we'll get photos, in the office. But if they're out of state, we haven't uploaded into our electron medical system. So before that appointment, they get a reminder that says, "Hey, make sure you take your photos so Dr. Chidester can review it." And so we have them do that. And then when I meet with them, if they didn't take it, Then we do a virtual exam, but then I do remind them to take the photos. So we do kind of hound our patients to get it, but it's really important. I think it's important for the patient so they can see, or be reminded of, okay, where do we start? Where are we now? Right. So you can compare, you can see the change, which is really cool. But two, it helps me as a surgeon and my team to assess ourselves, right? Like if we're never checking ourselves for our work and we just assume everybody's doing well, then we're not going to grow. Like I'm not going to grow as a surgeon and become better at what I do. Like if I don't have that feedback from a belly button, like I tried something and then I never see them again. Well, I don't know. Maybe that was a terrible idea. And if I keep doing it and never see people, there's like 100 women out there with terrible belly buttons. We don't want that. So I think it's important to have those follow-ups and to get that feedback. And sometimes, yeah, it's painful. Your feedback, you're like, oh, okay, thank you for being honest, but you learn from it and then we grow.
And that right there is the jewel. I feel like and I talk to my girls about this all the time. If your surgeon is open to conversation with you, that's really what you're looking for, because there's no surgeon can guarantee that everything's going to come out 100% perfect and you're going to be 100% happy and nothing's going to happen. That's not real. That's not realistic. Something can happen. And although we do everything possible to avoid a complication or something happening, it's still a possibility. And conversation with your surgeon is so important.
I agree 100%. And sometimes, as surgeons, we think, oh, we know better and I'm just going to tell you how it should be, or you did something wrong, right? But I think really you just have to, be open and listen, get and accept critique. And, and sometimes it's a hard conversation to have. Yeah, exactly. But I think like, for me, I always tell patients like, we're on the same team. Like, I don't want this to ever be like, you're coming in, you're mad at me because something happened. Like you said, even if someone does, I did a TikTok on this yesterday. Someone asked me, have you ever had perfect surgery? No, in my opinion, there's no such thing. Like, what is considered perfect anyway? But even if I did everything perfectly, like you think it's perfect, the surgery outcome will never be perfect because there's so many variables that we can't control. You don't live in like an isolated box. Like you have to live life and your body's going to heal itself. And sometimes people heal differently. But I think, as long as we're on the same team and my patients understand that, like they can feel comfortable approaching me or my other staff, and my staff feels comfortable. Again, this comes down to culture. So if I am able to take, positive feedback or negative feedback from my staff, they're willing to come and say, hey, your patient came in and is just not happy with so-and-so. They're willing to first off come tell me. If they're afraid to tell me because they think I'm going to yell at them or throw an instrument at them, then I'm never going to learn about it, right? And then they're going to go make an excuse for that patient, and that patient will then not feel validated because now they're not seeing me. I don't even know about it. So it really stems, I think, from the culture that the surgeon sets. And then, if the staff feels comfortable, they'll tell you, and if I'm comfortable, I'll talk to the patient, right? So I think it trickles that direction. And so I definitely think it starts with the culture.
Absolutely. I think you definitely hit it on the head with that, and I say this on the show all the time, it trickles down from the top. Mm-hmm. Whatever is happening, it's trickling down from the top. So you are confirming what I've been telling my girls, that if it's coming from the top, if the staff is telling you things, it's probably coming from management of what they're telling you. But okay, so Dr. Chiddy, tell us, my listeners, my girls, where can they come see you if they want to come have surgery with you?
So I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, technically we're gonna be in Draper, Utah. It's just south of Salt Lake. But you can find me on Instagram, so Dr.Chiddy, just Chiddy. I'm on TikTok, Dr.Chiddy, Facebook. A lot of people DM me on Instagram. I'm happy. I do all my own replies. I take care of my own social media content, but sometimes I can't keep up. So I do try to reply, but I get a lot of DMs. So currently my books are open. I am booked out a couple of years. So for consults and then surgery. So I do have, again, two partners. They're amazing. Dr. Pfeiffer, Dr. Garlick. They are aesthetic fellowship trained. Very similar styles in terms of belly buttons, breasts. We do a lot of internal bra. We're very similar in what we do in that sense. They're great, and so there are options as well. And we have a lot of the same kind of philosophy on how we approach our patients. And that's, I handpicked them. Like I was very, very careful in who I brought on. After my first experience working with a different doctor, I was like mortified. I was like PTSD. I don't want to work with any other surgeon ever again. I just want to do my own thing. But then I realized as I got busier, I'm like, I can't do this alone. And the vision I had in terms of wanting to grow this, I'm like, I couldn't do it alone. So when I brought on Dr. Garlic, I've known him since medical school for over 10 years. And so we're good friends. And so I knew who he was. He's an awesome surgeon. And then Dr. Pfeiffer, who we brought on just this last summer, he's a phenomenal human being, super intelligent. He even has his MBA, his business degree, and as a doctor. So just a smart guy, but his patients love him, you know. And so, and I've had a lot of people DM me and say, thank you for bringing on Dr. Garlic or Dr. Pfeiffer. I had such a good experience, you know, and I always send those screenshots to them so they see that, and you know, it's good, positive feedback for them. But yeah, so I'm happy to see patients. I do breast augmentation cases because they're really short. They're like an hour of surgery. Those patients I'll still see, and I'll see them within a couple of months because those can fill some of my little slots that I have. But like for the mommy takeovers, I'm booked out so far on those, you know, it's just hard to get people in right away, but we try.
Well, I've heard really great things about Dr. Garlic, actually. Really great things from his patients, and actually Dr. Pfeiffer. I have heard really great things about him. So now that we know you handpicked them and you were very picky and particular about who you brought on to join the culture, and that lets us know a lot about what to expect with them. So Salt Lake City with Dr. Chiddy or Dr. Garlic or Dr. Pfeiffer. Maybe we should get them on the show.
Yeah, for sure. They'd love that.
Send them my way, Dr. Chiddy. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And if to my girls who are listening, if you want to go see Dr. Chiddy, go see him in Salt Lake City, or you can go check him out on TikTok.